I remember the exact moment everything changed. The ballroom was filled with crystal chandeliers and expensive perfume. I was sitting at table 3, right near the front. That's when Vanessa Carter pointed her perfectly manicured finger at me. Her voice cut through the classical music like a knife. "Security, remove this man immediately. He doesn't belong here." 2 guards in black suits started walking toward me. Everyone turned to stare. The whispers began spreading across the room like wildfire. I looked down at my plate, then at the name card sitting right in front of me. My hands stayed calm on the table. I didn't move. I didn't argue. But inside, something cold and sharp settled into place. This woman had just made the biggest mistake of her life. She just didn't know it yet. Neither did her husband. Neither did anyone in that room. But they would all find out soon enough. The gala was incredible. Everything sparkled. The walls were covered in gold trim and tall mirrors. Waiters moved silently between tables carrying trays of champagne. Women wore long gowns that cost more than most people's cars. Men stood in groups wearing custom suits and Swiss watches. I recognized faces from magazine covers and business news. There were tech founders, hedge fund managers, and politicians. The air smelled like money and power. A string quartet played softly in the corner. Ice sculptures shaped like swans sat on tables near the entrance. The ceiling was painted with scenes of angels and clouds. I sat quietly, watching everything. I've learned that powerful people talk more when you listen. They reveal things without meaning to. I was good at listening. I was good at watching. That's how I noticed the details others missed. That's how I survived in a world where one wrong move could cost you everything. I grew up in a town where nobody talked about galas or investments. My father fixed machines at the textile factory. He came home every night with grease under his fingernails and exhaustion in his eyes. Our house was small but clean. My mother worked at the grocery store on weekends. We didn't have much, but we had enough. I remember watching my father repair our old television with spare parts. He was smart with his hands. He could fix anything. But he never got to make the big decisions. He never sat in boardrooms or decided which factories stayed open. He just showed up, did his work, and hoped the people above him made good choices. I used to wonder who those people were. The ones who decided things. The ones with power. I watched my father's rough hands and made a promise to myself. One day, I would understand how their world worked. I was 16 when the factory closed. A corporation from another state bought the company. They reviewed the numbers and decided our town wasn't profitable enough. Just like that, 800 people lost their jobs. My father came home in the middle of the day. I knew something was wrong immediately. He sat at the kitchen table and stared at his hands. "It's done," he said quietly. My mother cried. The whole town changed after that. Stores closed. Families moved away. Friends disappeared. I saw what happened when powerful people made decisions without thinking about the faces behind the numbers. They saw profit margins. We saw our neighbors losing their homes. That's when I decided I needed to learn their language. I needed to understand how these decisions got made. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted to matter. I wanted to be in the room when the decisions happened. I studied finance in college. I worked 3 jobs to pay for it. While other students partied, I read reports about mergers and acquisitions. I learned how companies valued assets. I studied how private equity firms bought and sold businesses. I memorized the language of balance sheets and cash flow statements. The numbers told stories if you knew how to read them. I learned about leverage and risk. I understood how a single decision could create or destroy wealth. After graduation, I started at a small investment firm. I analyzed deals that nobody else wanted to touch. I worked 16-hour days. I made spreadsheets while others slept. Slowly, people started noticing my work. I could spot problems in financial statements that others missed. I could see warning signs hidden in footnotes. 5 years later, I made partner at one of the most respected private equity firms in the country. I was finally in the room. At Blackstone River Capital, we didn't invest millions. We invested billions. Our decisions shaped entire industries. When we backed a company, other investors followed. When we walked away, the company usually collapsed. I sat in meetings where we decided the future of thousands of employees. I reviewed deals that would change markets. Every investment we made sent ripples through the economy. The responsibility was enormous. One wrong decision could lose our investors hundreds of millions. But one right decision could create massive returns. I was good at finding the right ones. I had a track record that spoke for itself. My colleagues respected my judgment. The managing partners trusted my analysis. I had worked my way from a dying factory town to the top of American finance. I remembered every step of that journey. I remembered what it felt like to be powerless. That memory kept me sharp. It kept me humble. At least, I thought it did. Carter Dynamics appeared 3 years ago. They focused on renewable energy technology. Their solar panels were more efficient than anything on the market. Their battery storage systems were revolutionary. The company grew incredibly fast. Revenue doubled every year. Major corporations started signing contracts. Governments wanted their technology. Stock analysts called them the future of clean energy. Everyone wanted a piece of Carter Dynamics. The company needed capital to expand globally. That's when they approached us. They wanted Blackstone River Capital to lead a $2.9 billion investment. That money would fund new factories, research facilities, and international operations. In return, we would own 30% of the company. The deal looked perfect on paper. The growth was real. The technology worked. The market opportunity was massive. Our whole team got excited. This could be the deal that defined our careers. But something about it made me uneasy. I couldn't explain why yet. Richard Carter was everything investors loved. He was 42, tall, and confident. He gave presentations without notes. He spoke about changing the world with absolute certainty. Magazine covers called him a visionary. Business schools used his company as a case study. When he walked into a room, people listened. He made renewable energy sound exciting and profitable. He knew exactly what to say to make investors believe. I watched him present to our investment committee. He was smooth. Too smooth. He answered every question perfectly. He had a statistic ready for every concern. His charm filled the room like cologne. Everyone smiled and nodded. After the presentation, my colleagues were already talking like the deal was done. "This is the one," someone said. Richard Carter shook hands and made eye contact. He remembered names. He made jokes. He was good. Maybe too good. I smiled and said nothing. But I took notes. The $2.9 billion investment was the largest deal our firm had attempted. We would be the lead investor. Other firms would follow our decision. If we said yes, Carter Dynamics would get the money they needed. If we said no, the company would struggle to find funding elsewhere. The pressure was enormous. Our managing partners wanted this deal. Our investors expected results. The media was already writing stories about the partnership. Everyone assumed it would happen. I was the lead analyst. My job was to review everything. The financial statements, the contracts, the projections, the risks. I had to make sure the numbers made sense. I had to find any problems before we committed billions. For 3 weeks, I lived in spreadsheets. I reviewed every document Carter Dynamics provided. Everything looked good. The company was growing. The profits were real. The technology had been verified. On paper, this was exactly the kind of investment we wanted. But I couldn't shake a feeling in my gut. Something felt off. Carter Dynamics hosted a charity gala to celebrate the partnership. It was supposed to be a formality. The deal wasn't officially signed yet, but everyone acted like it was done. The event was at the Grand Regent Hotel, the most expensive venue in the city. 500 guests were invited. Business leaders, politicians, celebrities. Richard Carter wanted to show the world that his company had arrived. The invitation was beautiful. Thick cardstock with gold lettering. Join us for an evening celebrating innovation and partnership. I received mine at the office. My assistant placed it on my desk with a smile. "Looks like you made the VIP list," she said. I looked at the invitation for a long time. Something about this felt like a performance. Like Richard Carter was trying too hard to convince everyone everything was perfect. But I had to attend. I was representing our firm. I put on my best suit and drove to the hotel. I arrived at the gala at 7:30. The ballroom was already crowded. I found table 3 near the front. My name card was right there, next to the centerpiece. The card was printed in elegant script on cream paper. I sat down quietly. Around me, people were laughing and drinking. I recognized several faces. A senator. A tech billionaire. The CEO of a major bank. Nobody paid attention to me. I preferred it that way. I watched Richard Carter work the room. He moved from table to table, shaking hands and smiling. Vanessa Carter stood beside him, wearing a red dress that probably cost $20,000. Diamonds hung around her neck. She smiled, but her eyes were cold. They were a perfect power couple. Beautiful, successful, untouchable. I sipped water and observed. The waiters brought out the first course. I noticed Vanessa looking in my direction. Her smile faded. She said something to her husband. He glanced over but kept talking to a congressman. Vanessa Carter started walking toward my table. Her heels clicked on the marble floor. Her face had that look wealthy people get when something offends them. She stopped a few feet away and stared at me. I met her eyes but didn't speak. She looked me up and down like I was a stain on her expensive carpet. "Excuse me," she said loudly. Several people at nearby tables turned to look. "I think you're in the wrong place." Her voice carried across the ballroom. I stayed calm. "I'm sitting at my assigned seat," I said quietly. She laughed. It wasn't a real laugh. It was the kind of laugh meant to make someone feel small. "This is the VIP section. These seats are for our important guests. You must have wandered over from the general seating area." People were definitely watching now. Whispers started spreading. I could feel eyes on me from every direction. I gestured to the name card in front of me. "My name is right here," I said. Vanessa picked up the name card. She looked at it like it personally insulted her. "There must be some mistake," she said. Her voice got sharper. "These tables are reserved for our major investors and partners. For people who actually matter to this company." The words hung in the air. People who actually matter. I felt the old anger from my childhood rise up. The anger of being invisible. Of being dismissed. But I kept my face neutral. "I'm with Blackstone River Capital," I said calmly. "I was invited to sit here." She narrowed her eyes. "Blackstone River. My husband works with the partners there. The important people. Not assistants or staff members." She turned to look at the people watching. She wanted an audience. "I don't know who you are, but you need to move." No. I didn't move. I couldn't let this go. Not because of pride. But because her words revealed something important. She didn't know who I was. Richard Carter hadn't told his wife about the actual people reviewing the deal. Vanessa's face turned red. She wasn't used to people saying no to her. "You have some nerve," she said loudly. The music had stopped. The security guards stepped closer. Everyone was watching. The silence was heavy. I looked at Richard Carter. I looked at his wife. I looked at the name card still sitting on the table. Then I nodded. "Of course," I said quietly. "I apologize for any confusion." The guards escorted me toward the exit. People whispered as I passed. I heard fragments of conversation. "Who was that? Some party crasher. The nerve of some people." I walked with my head up. I didn't look back. The guards led me through the lobby and out to the street. They weren't rough. They were just doing their job. "Sorry about that," one of them said quietly. I nodded. "Not your fault." I stood on the sidewalk outside the Grand Regent Hotel. Inside, the gala continued. I could hear music starting again through the glass doors. I took out my phone and called a car. While I waited, I thought about Vanessa's face. The certainty. The arrogance. The complete belief that she was right. As I walked out, I glanced back one last time. Through the glass doors, I could see table 3. The empty chair where I had been sitting. And there, still sitting next to the centerpiece, was my name card. Clear as day. Nobody had removed it. Nobody had even looked at it carefully. They had been so certain I didn't belong that they never checked. That detail told me everything I needed to know. These people made decisions based on appearances, not facts. They trusted their assumptions more than evidence. They saw what they expected to see. In business, that kind of thinking was dangerous. In life, it was costly. But I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt something colder. Something more focused. I got into the car and told the driver to take me to my hotel. I sat in the back seat and watched the city lights pass by. My phone buzzed with a message from one of my colleagues. "What happened? You okay?" I didn't respond. I had work to do. Back at my hotel room, I took off my suit jacket and tie. I ordered room service and opened my laptop. The humiliation played through my mind on repeat. But I didn't let emotion cloud my thinking. I thought about Richard and Vanessa Carter. About how easily they dismissed me. About how confidently they assumed I didn't matter. That confidence came from years of being right. Of having power. Of never being challenged. People like that made mistakes because they stopped questioning themselves. They stopped looking closely. They stopped being careful. I thought about the deal. About the $2.9 billion investment everyone assumed would happen. About how much Carter Dynamics needed that money. About what would happen if they didn't get it. I ate my dinner slowly. Then I pulled up the financial reports for Carter Dynamics. The same reports I had reviewed 3 times already. This time, I wasn't looking for what was there. I was looking for what wasn't there. I spent 4 hours going through the numbers. Balance sheets. Income statements. Cash flow projections. Debt schedules. Partnership agreements. Everything Carter Dynamics had provided to support their request for $2.9 billion. At first glance, everything looked fine. Great, even. Revenue was growing. Margins were strong. The technology was selling. But I started digging into the footnotes. The small print that most people skip. I found references to subsidiary companies. Offshore entities. Complex financing arrangements. I pulled up the corporate structure diagram. Carter Dynamics had 17 subsidiary companies. Some were explained clearly. Manufacturing facilities. Sales offices. Research labs. But 3 of them had vague descriptions. Strategic holdings. Investment vehicles. Asset management. I made notes. Why did a solar panel company need investment vehicles? Why were some subsidiaries registered in the Cayman Islands? It might be normal. It might be tax optimization. Or it might be something else. I needed to look deeper. By 2 in the morning, I found it. Hidden in the notes to the financial statements, mentioned briefly in a section about contingent liabilities. Carter Dynamics had guaranteed loans for their subsidiary companies. Over $800 million in guarantees. Those loans weren't showing up on the main balance sheet. They were technically separate companies, so the debt stayed off Carter Dynamics' books. But if those subsidiaries couldn't pay, Carter Dynamics was responsible. I pulled up the subsidiary financial statements. They were buried in a supplemental filing. Most analysts wouldn't read them carefully. The subsidiaries were losing money. Badly. They were burning through cash. The loans were coming due in 18 months. If Carter Dynamics had to pay those guarantees, it would consume most of the $2.9 billion investment. The money wouldn't go to growth. It would go to covering bad debts. This changed everything. Suddenly, the deal looked completely different. This wasn't an investment in a growing company. This was a bailout disguised as an opportunity. The next morning, I called an emergency meeting with my analysis team. 4 of our best financial analysts gathered in the conference room. I shared what I found. At first, they were skeptical. Maybe it's just aggressive accounting, one said. Lots of companies use subsidiary structures for tax purposes, another added. I know, I said. But look at the cash burn rate. Look at when these loans mature. Run the numbers. We spent the entire day rebuilding Carter Dynamics' financial model. When we included the hidden liabilities, the picture changed dramatically. The company wasn't as profitable as it appeared. The growth wasn't as sustainable. The risk was much higher than anyone thought. By evening, my team agreed. "This is a problem," the senior analyst said. "A big problem." We prepared a report. Detailed, thorough, documented. Every claim backed by evidence. Every concern supported by numbers. I scheduled a meeting with the investment committee for the next morning. I knew what I had to do. But I also knew it wouldn't be easy. The investment committee meeting started at 9. The room was full. Our managing partners, senior executives, legal counsel, and the deal team. Everyone was expecting me to give final approval for the Carter Dynamics investment. Instead, I presented our findings. I walked through the subsidiary structure, the hidden loans, the contingent liabilities, the cash burn, the risk factors. The room went silent. "How did we miss this?" someone asked. "It wasn't obvious," I said. "It was designed not to be obvious." I showed them the calculations. If the subsidiaries failed, Carter Dynamics would need to pay the guaranteed loans. That would consume the majority of our investment. We wouldn't be funding growth. We would be covering mistakes. One of the partners leaned back in his chair. "What are you recommending?" he asked. I took a breath. "I recommend we decline the investment." The room exploded with questions. But I stayed calm. I had the numbers. I had the evidence. I had done my job. 3 hours later, the committee voted. The decision was unanimous. We would not invest $2.9 billion in Carter Dynamics. Our firm released a statement the next day. After careful review, Blackstone River Capital has decided not to proceed with the proposed investment in Carter Dynamics. The business world was shocked. Other investors who had planned to follow our lead immediately pulled back. Carter Dynamics had counted on our $2.9 billion. They had made promises based on getting that money. Now those promises couldn't be kept. Within a week, analysts started asking questions. If Blackstone River walked away, what did they know? Journalists started investigating. They found the same subsidiary structures I had found. They started asking about the hidden liabilities. Carter Dynamics stock price dropped 20% in one day, 40% by the end of the week. Richard Carter held a press conference. He tried to explain. He blamed us for not understanding their business model. But the damage was done. The Securities and Exchange Commission announced an investigation into the company's accounting practices. More investors sold their shares. Partners backed away. The perfect image started to crack. Over the next 3 months, everything fell apart. The SEC investigation found serious accounting violations. Carter Dynamics had deliberately hidden debt to make their financial position look stronger. Several executives resigned. Richard Carter was removed as CEO by the board of directors. The company declared bankruptcy 6 months later. Thousands of employees lost their jobs. Shareholders lost billions. The renewable energy technology was eventually sold to a competitor. The Carter name became associated with fraud and failure. I watched it happen from a distance. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt sad. All those employees who had nothing to do with the accounting fraud lost their jobs. Just like my father had years ago. But I had done my job. I had protected our investors. I had stopped a bad deal. If we had invested, we would have lost billions. Sometimes the right decision still feels heavy. I thought about that night at the gala. About Vanessa Carter pointing at me. About Richard Carter looking through me like I was invisible. About the name card sitting on the table. 6 months after everything collapsed, I received an email. It was from Richard Carter. The subject line said, "I remember now." The message was short. "I saw your picture in the business journal. You were the man at the gala. The one my wife had removed. I didn't recognize you that night. I should have. I'm sorry for how we treated you. But I think you knew exactly who I was." I read it twice. Then I deleted it. He was right. I did know who he was. I knew his company. I knew his numbers. I knew his secrets. That's what real power is. Not the ability to remove someone from a party. Not wearing expensive clothes or sitting at the front table. Real power is knowing what others don't know. It's doing the work when no one is watching. It's being underestimated and using that to your advantage. Vanessa Carter thought I didn't belong in her world. She was wrong. I belonged there more than she did. Because I had earned my place. I sat in my office and looked out at the city. My father would have been proud. Not because I destroyed a company, but because I did my job with integrity. Because I didn't let anyone make me feel small. Because I remembered where I came from and never forgot what really mattered.